The feminization of culture. I'm going to put another article in the chat here, which is a really great article that was written a little while ago by Helen Andrews, and it's called "The Feminization of Culture," the Great Feminization. I think there's a really wonderful YouTube video going around where she presents this essay, and she presents a talk on it. And just look her name up, and you'll see it. It's really great. Um, and what she's talking about is how the woke movement has essentially feminized professional cultures, work cultures, the academic world, medicine, and she's absolutely right. It's fascinating read, and it really is stuff that a lot of stuff we've been saying forever. A lot of YouTubers who are like minded, like myself, have been calling some of this stuff out, but she really talks about it in a really succinct and clear way. And the workplace became completely feminized once once this idea that men and women were different became taboo. You can't say that. You can't say men and women are different or want different things or do different things. You can't or think different ways. How dare you? You can't say that. Once that became taboo, weirdly enough, it just the masculine climate that was in a lot of these places, whether it's workplaces or academic world or hospitals or whatever, gave way to the feminine atmosphere, which was not sold as masculine versus feminine. It was just sold as the old bad way versus the new right way, and you think about it, think about like human resources, the very idea of it. Uh, it's one thing if Susan, the secretary, is being physically groped by, one of the men at work. Okay, that's like assault, all right? That's not just harassment, that's assault, right? You're being unwanted physical touching. That's assault. Call the police. Don't go to human resource. Call the freaking police. But oh, Tom from accounting told an off-color joke and Cheryl was uncomfortable by it. Well, suck it up, Buttercup. The world makes you uncomfortable sometimes. That's just. But this, oh, we got to make sure that everyone's feelings are, that's a feminization, a overly feminization of culture, of professional worlds and whatnot. And she breaks it down really great. And I've seen it, absolutely seen it in the academic world. I remember I was doing my we had to do a lit review, which is a review of scholarship, is a better phrase for it. But it was like the big test before I got my master's in English. And of course, in the English program where I was getting my master's, predominantly women, um, as is more and more increasingly becoming the case in the academic world. And I was looking at an academic study on Wonder Woman and her as an archetype, and all that kind of stuff. I was doing this even back then. And a review of scholarship is looking at the peer reviewed academic scholarship that's out there. And one of the commentaries I made in my review was that the feminism, like the feminist lens, in terms of the feminist critical theory lens, so the feminist scholars, they were just spinning their wheels with this one note over and over. They just had nothing new to say. It was just all like, oh, problematic her costume is. It was just like, you know ironically, it was the people that came from the queer theorist perspective that were actually going deeper and giving something of, and the psychoanalytic theory. They were just knocking it out of the park. But we don't talk about psychoanalytic theory anymore because that's the patriarchy and blah blah blah. But I was pointing that out and I was giving it evidence. And I was saying, these people are actually saying new and fresh and interesting ideas. The feminist theory lens is just going over the same stuff over and over. And they actually commented, not arguing with me, not saying, well, you're wrong because other people over here are saying this. No, it wasn't that. Their comment was, you can't say that in a paper that is going to be read by feminist professors who spent their whole life studying this stuff. I'm going to hurt their fifis is basically what they were telling me. Are you kidding me? Is this not an academic, rigorous place of study and new ideas? And oh, I'm sorry, your feelings were hurt by the truth or by reality, but that's the way it is, But that kind of thing is thrown out the window today in this feminization of culture. So anyway, that article is great. It really talks about that, and there's some videos on that. What I was noticing, though, what I would add to that, and it's something I've talked about, even most last time when I talked about the this hubbub over K-pop Demon Hunter of all of these like grown straight men into this, which is just weird. Um, there's a feminization of our popular culture, and it really does affect and start feminizing young men who are into this kind of stuff. And people, oh my gosh, they get their panties in such a twist over this. And so let me just dive into the most controversial aspect of it first. Oh, the thing that's just going to rankle all of you. Oh, anime is a big problem. It's a big part of this. No, I'm not saying all anime is bad. No, I'm not saying all anime is like this. I'll even admit that I think there's plenty of things about anime that are maybe linked to Japanese or Korean culture in a certain way or whatever, where it's relevant in that culture and not really feminizing and maybe in that culture or something like that, right? For example, uh, I think it's called the chibi like characters, where you can get a character, let's say like a big action hero, but now they're short, squat, fat, and they've got like big eyes, and they're so cute and chibi. That is disgusting. And I'm like, why are men into this kind of thing? Now maybe that's some sort of, I don't know. I'm not into, I don't care about Japanese culture or Korean culture. I mean, I have nothing against it, but it's just not my thing. And I'm not interested in going and learning about it. So maybe that's relevant in that culture in some which way, where it isn't an effeminization for men in that culture. Maybe, I don't know. I'll even give you that though. But the fact is that it comes over here into American culture, and you got grown men collecting freaking Funko Pops. It's like, what? Where did this come from? And I mean, like, I get how the slippery slope happens because I have a few Funko Pops. It's like, oh, I really like Alice Cooper, or I really like He-Man. Oh, there's a collectible, and it's like and they sell it to you like, oh, this is a rare collector's edition, an Alice Cooper Funko Pop, and I'm like, oh, cool, I'll get that. And then I've got them, and I'm like, these things are butt ugly. I guess people just think, "Oh, they're so cute. Look at their big head and their little eyes and they just look stupid and they look very feminized." It looked like something that a woman would think is very cute and like, and that's fine. But men, grown men are super into this stuff. And and it's not that, oh, you like Funko Pop, so you're gay, or it's not, oh, you watch K-pop Demon Hunter, so you're a girly guy. Ah ha ha. It's not about any one of these things. It's not about, oh, you like this, therefore there's a problem with you. The issue I'm seeing and that I'm pointing out is that it's really pervasive. It's not that, oh, our young men like K-pop Demon Hunter. It's that our young men like K-pop Demon Hunter and Sailor Moon and collect Funko Pops and are starting to really kind of take on this feminization. It's an overall thing. So it's, I get strawmanned on this all the time, but people say, "Oh, get over it. Somebody likes something you don't like." No, that's not it at all, you idiot. Uh, yeah, maybe this person likes that, which is a little weird, but whatever, whatever. It's this overall feminization that I see. And that's the thing for a man in the Western world to go around squeeing over little chibi style Ghostbusters or something like that. That's not That's just that's weird, right? Now, if that's the only thing about the guy just happens to like cutesy things like that, but whatever. I mean, that's fine. Again, it's not about one thing. It's about this overall feminization. And it ties in, and you put this in the present world with what's going on in the professional world and the academic world and so forth, and it's this super feminization, and we see it in the current celebrities for young people today. I put some images up on the thumbnail there, and that was, what is his name, Bad Bunny, I think. I've never heard of this guy because I don't follow popular culture like that, but he's the guy that's going to be doing the halftime show at the Super Bowl or whatever, and he's non-binary. And I put the picture of Ezra Miller, non-binary. And they're really trying to make, and this is part of the woke world too, really trying to push this idea. Let's tear down any kind of idea of what it means to be masculine, because gender is just a cultural construct. It's not at all. I mean, there are some certain trappings around it that you might say are culturally relevant to one culture and maybe not to another culture, and that's fine. But in general, I'm talking about the Western world here. You see a lot of overly feminized young men, and their only defense is, well, I mean, it's not like this in another culture. Well, okay, that's fine. If it's not like that in Korea or Japan, that's totally fine. But you're not in Korea or Japan. I mean, unless you're actually Korean or Japanese, and that's like a part of the culture that you really still keep in touch with or something. But I'm talking about the vast majority of young men, this like over feminization that I'm seeing in them, is just insane. I got a lot of comments on my K-pop Demon Hunter video, and some of them were just like, "How dare you?" Whatever, and those are the people I block. But a lot of people were very polite or whatever, but they were just like, "Yeah, I mean, I do like My Little Pony's Friendship is Magic, though. It has some good writing." And I'm thinking, what happened to our young men, like men around in their 20s or teens or whatever? It doesn't matter if My Little Pony Friendship is Magic is well written. It's not it's not marketed to men. And what I mean by that is that it's built around feelings and empathy, and feelings are more important than truth, and adventure is not as important as just making sure that everybody is cared for and feeling. Now, none of that stuff's bad. That's good feminine energy that we need in our world. That's what women bring to the table, and that's great. But that's not what men bring to the table in general. There are exceptions here and there. This woman has more of a masculine brain, or this man has more of a feminine brain. There have always been exceptions, but we're seeing it across the board now. I mean, I was telling Sound Engraver, at one point, I could name every pony in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and I hated it. But it was because my daughter would watch it all the time. So it was on the TV. That and Strawberry Shortcake, they were on the TV all the time. Now, if you ask me, they're probably well-written shows. Yeah, they were fine, and they were good shows marketed to little girls. Great. But never once was I like, "Oh, this is asleep. I'm gonna go back to season 2 and catch in the details that I missed of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic." No, no. Boys grew up watching stuff like G.I. Joe or He-Man or whatever, where it's adventure driven, where it's task oriented, it's to save, it's to protect, it's this kind of stuff. That's the thing that's marketed to young boys. And again, it's not about, oh, this young man likes My Little Pony, so therefore they're evil, they're girly, what. It's not about one thing. I'm just calling out the examples and what's behind these examples. If you're constantly drawn to, or you really are into things that are marketed to women because they're marketed with feminized themes and feminized storylines and stuff like that, then how is that's the whole shtick of my channel. The things you watch are going to affect you, and you are what you eat, just like you are what you read. You are what you watch. Stories do affect us. They mold us. And if that's the stuff that you're spending time with, then you're becoming feminized, and that's not okay. Men and women are different, and we need them both, and we need both masculine and feminine energies in the world. It's not a spectrum. It's just the gender is a spectrum, and today I feel masculine, but yesterday I felt more feminine. Bullcrap. Bullcrap. There's biology behind this. Okay, Studio Soups, I think, or Super was the first one here. Said, "You need to consider people's feelings. Bull. They should like me because I got the job done." Yeah, in the professional world. I mean, where was this idea that I need to feel my workplace, I need to feel safe, and I need to feel valued, and I need to feel nurtured and cared for? It's work. Now, you shouldn't feel in danger, your person, or you're dangerous or anything like that. No, like I said, there's a difference between, say, harassment and actual assault. But I don't like the joke they told, or whatever. So what? Suck it up. Wasn't that part of kindergarten, learning that you gotta pick it up and roll with it sometimes? Um, there's a reason that, let's say, the nursing industry, for example, has always been predominantly filled with women, because women are really good at that nurturing, caring role. And it doesn't mean that there are never any male nurses, or no male should ever be a nurse. Like I said, there are exceptions. There are this or that male that's a little bit more of a feminine brain or feminized thinking or whatever, and a woman who might be a little bit more of a masculinized thinking in certain things. You can't just paint it all with one brush. But there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why, you know, um, a lot of manual labor jobs have traditionally been male, because they're usually task oriented. I need to dig this hole and take the dirt over there, and that kind of thing or whatever. Yeah, it's a good point, Leah. Plus, I was talking about the hate the Wicked movies. Already the ads for the part two are out. Can't stand what they're doing to the Wizard of Oz, and the men are so feminine in those movies. Well, on one hand, like when you're down on a children's, because I mentioned My Little Pony's Friendship is Magic. Let's take that as the example. Uh, when it comes to like a children's story, okay, if something's going to be marketed to little boys or little girls, it does have to be marketed in a way that's going to appeal to their psychologies, their developing psychologies at the time, and in a healthy way even. And if you look at My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, right? The only real, I mean, there's a couple like male ponies here and there, whatever, but the only real regular male character is that little dragon that hangs around. What's her name? Thank goodness I forgot their names now, since Alyssa doesn't really watch that stuff anymore. But that little like male dragon, um, and he's so, and if you look at his character, like he's infantilized. He's a baby basically. He's a dragon, but he's nothing. He's not dangerous. He's a chubby little, you know, arms that can't even really do much. He's a little assistant to the woman character and so forth. And that's a safe masculine, or it's a safe male character for a little girl to have in their story, right? Um, our Strawberry Shortcake, you know, that my daughter used to watch too, the Huckleberry was like the one guy character, unless you count like some of the bugs or whatever. But he was just basically a simp for Blueberry. You know, he was just basically like anything you say, you know, and it's one thing. I'm not really upset about that kind of thing when it's in a children's story where it doesn't really feel like it's trying to mold or manipulate, you know, a young girl into thinking that all men should be like this. It's just kind of, you know, there for them, you know, whatever, and that's fine. But you take that kind of thinking and you put it into movies for adults, like you said, Wicked. Now I haven't even seen Wicked 1. I refuse to. Uh, but I'm sure. I mean, I've seen the previews, and yeah, these feminized men. Uh, that's the woke world that these woke ideologues, they want to see that reflected in real life. That's why they encourage men, little boys, to maybe you're transgender, maybe you're non-binary. Don't even think of it like one or the other. It's all a spectrum. So, you know, even though you might think you're masculine today, you know, tomorrow maybe put on a dress. You know, like they are actively trying to tear down masculinity. It's I don't know what their psychology behind it is. It's a warped way of thinking. But men, we need real men. We need real men who aren't into all these little girly things. We need men in our society. And that doesn't mean, like I said, it doesn't mean you got to go play sports and you got to be lifting weights and drinking your creatine and be a man. No, it means be masculine. And masculine doesn't have to look one way, but it has to look like masculinity. It's not a mystery, you know. You know, we used to have villains in cartoons, and you knew they were villains because they were disordered in some which way. They were either a man acting really, really childish, or a man acting overly effeminate. And that was a cue to the readers that there's something disordered in this individual. It's why they're the villain. They don't have it all together. You know, so somebody like Skeletor was very childlike, you know, dangerous and everything, but in the cartoons and stuff, he's got a childlike nature to him. So, you know, little kids recognize, oh, that's not how a grown person should act, you know, and stuff. I would argue that Cobra Commander is both a little childlike and a little feminine. He's got a little feminization going on in Cobra Commander. Think about Fire and Ice. You know, the Ralph Bakshi, and shoot, the other author, this artist is escaping my, the Conan artist is so great that I just can't think of his name right now. But the villain in that, you've got Tigra, Princess Tigra, this incredibly femininely drawn, you know, heroine or damsel in distress or whatever, you know, super sexualized, you know, drawn. So she's all woman, and the villain kidnaps her and really doesn't even know what to do with her. He's not even interested in her sexually or romantically in any way. He just kind of wants her for some sort of power struggle. And he's super effeminate in all of his moves. He's got like these mommy issues with his mother and everything. And she needs actual masculine men, you know, I can't remember the names of the characters in Fire and Ice, but the two men, you know, to come save her, you know, who are swashbuckling and actually out there being men. So yes, I mean, you know, it's something that children recognize in comics all the time if they're not being uh, programmed otherwise. But when I was doing research from this, I was telling Sound Engraver that a lot of videos that were popping up in my feed were from pastors or people like in the church world, not really Catholic world, but there were people from like the evangelical Protestant world who were really talking about the problems with the over feminization of churches. And I'm thinking back to my time in evangelical churches, and I was like, yeah, you know, you're right. I mean, I was in a lot of those churches where And they were bringing in stuff from the corporate world, like, okay, what's our mission statement? We need to make sure that everybody's connected through a small group, so everybody feels safe and every feel, and they're saying things like, the songs you used to sing in church were, onward Christian soldier, and now that's, become heaven meets earth in a sloppy wet kiss, and it's all about just come here and feel accepted. Just feel accepted. No, how about come here and realize the sin in your life that you need to cut out and know that you're on a journey. And I love the Catholic idea. We are the church militant. We're still fighting the spiritual war, here on earth. And but no, that's taken out of a lot of churches, not all of them, but of a lot of them. And it's just this more feminized culture here that's held sway. It's the same thing, like that article that I shared you from what's her name, Helen Andrews, I think. Yeah, it's anything she says about the professional world can easily be seen with uh, with churches, because a lot of churches are adopting things that they see from the corporate world. That's been a thing around ever since the 2000s. I think that became really heavy in that. Stop denying this idea that men and women are different. It doesn't mean that every woman's the same and every man's the same. No, no one's saying that. But there's a general difference between men and women. And it's not just biological, it's psychological as well. There's a general difference between men and women. There's 100 different, or more than 100, there's a million different flavors or whatever of what it means to be feminine, just as there's a million different flavors of what it means to be masculine, but there's a general difference. Stop denying it.